Before we dive in, if you think you can handle the truth behind Halloween's darkest secrets, hit subscribe, like, and comment below, because what you're about to hear will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. October 31st had always been peaceful in Millhaven, Pennsylvania. The small town, surrounded by dense woods and quiet hills, glowed each year with pumpkins on porches and children racing door to door for candy. But that night, the laughter ended early. Detective Laura Martinez parked her unmarked Ford Taurus on West Elm Street as police lights painted the alley red and blue. The radio hissed, static breaking through the cold night air. Officers moved quickly, taping off the narrow lane. At first, it looked like another Halloween prank, until Laura saw the body. 16-year-old Emily Carson lay face down between two trash cans, her costume torn. Beside her, a pumpkin candy basket spilled its contents across the wet pavement. Something about her posture felt deliberate, unnatural. Time of death? Laura asked Officer Daniels, the grizzled patrolman crouched nearby. About 2 hours ago, he said. Witnesses saw her trick-or-treating near Maple Avenue, heading toward the old Millhaven Theater. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Laura scanned the shadows. Whoever did this had known where to find her. Check surveillance, she said sharply. Every camera from here to Maple Avenue. Forensic teams worked methodically, flashlights sweeping over the pavement. The smell of rain and metal hung in the air. Laura couldn't shake the sense of déjà vu. This wasn't Millhaven's first Halloween murder. 10 years earlier, 3 teenagers had been killed under eerily similar circumstances. Those murders were never solved. Locals still whispered about the Halloween stalker. Laura had heard those stories growing up, fairy tales meant to keep kids off the streets. But tonight, the legend had stepped out of the shadows. Detective, Daniels called. You'll want to see this. Inside Emily's candy basket was a folded piece of paper. 4 words written in a jagged scrawl. You should have stayed home. Laura's stomach turned. This was no random killing, it was a message. Back at the station, Captain Robert Hensley convened a midnight briefing. Maps of Millhaven and old crime photos covered the table. This isn't just another Halloween accident, Hensley said. Someone planned this. Someone who knows the town. Laura studied the map. We need to reopen every unsolved Halloween file. There's a connection somewhere. Maybe, Hensley replied. But for now we have one priority, stop whoever's doing this before another kid ends up dead. Later that night, Laura retraced Emily's last route. Maple Avenue was silent except for the soft rustle of leaves. The old Millhaven Theater loomed ahead, its windows boarded, its sign cracked. Inside, the smell of rot and mold choked the air. Laura's flashlight swept across broken seats and peeling walls, until something moved. A shape crouched near the stage. She raised her gun, heart pounding. But when she got closer, the figure was gone. Only dust and silence remained, except for the floor. Someone had carved 2 letters into the wood, EC circled roughly. Emily Carson. Meanwhile, across town, a man sat in a cluttered basement surrounded by yellowed newspapers, headlines of the old Halloween murders. On the wall, a calendar was marked with every October 31st. Each date crossed off in red. He folded a photo of Emily into his pocket and whispered, "They never learn. They never stay home." By morning, Millhaven was in panic. Candlelight vigils lined Main Street. Parents kept their children indoors. The mayor held a press conference urging calm, but fear had already settled deep. Halloween would never be the same. Laura spread crime scene photos across her desk. The message. The alleyway. The reflections. Then, something. In one photo, in the puddle near Emily's body, a faint silhouette appeared in the distance. A tall figure watching. She flipped through old case files, same outline, same angle. Someone had been there before. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number, they know you're looking. Don't stop. Her blood ran cold. Whoever it was, they were watching her too. That night, Laura returned to the alley. The street was deserted, the only sound the rattle of loose tape in the wind. She crouched by the puddle again, the faint glow of her flashlight cutting across the wet ground, and froze. In the reflection behind her, a mask. A porcelain face, motionless. She spun around. Nothing. Just darkness. Her radio crackled. Detective Martinez, we found something you need to see. Minutes later, she was at the old theater again. Forensic lights flickered across the basement door, sealed for years. Officers forced it open. The stench hit immediately. Inside, the walls were lined with photographs, trinkets, and old newspaper cutouts. On the floor lay a pattern, arranged from past victims' belongings. At the center, scrawled in crimson paint, the legends were warnings. Now you see why. Laura stepped back, her pulse hammering. Every old story, every whispered tale, it wasn't myth. It was history repeating itself. Then from the shadows came a sound. Slow. Deliberate. Someone else was down there. And in their hands they were holding something that would change everything. The morning after Emily Carson's death, Millhaven felt hollow. Stores opened late, streets were empty, and whispers of fear traveled faster than any news broadcast. Detective Laura Martinez, still shaken from the basement discovery, entered the station with a single thought. She couldn't let this killer claim another life. Captain Hensley had already convened an urgent task force. Maps were spread across tables, photographs of victims, old case files, and even Halloween decorations collected from crime scenes. Laura scanned the room. Every investigator's face mirrored the same mix of dread and determination. Yesterday was just the beginning, Hensley said, voice steady but laced with concern. This killer has been planning for years. We need to anticipate his next move before another teen disappears. Laura opened a folder marked Past Halloween Incidents, Millhaven 2005 to 2015. Names, faces, and dates blurred together, but one pattern emerged. Every victim had been last seen near public events, parades, school carnivals, Halloween parties. It wasn't random. It was calculated. Across town, in a darkened apartment overlooking the Millhaven parade route, a man meticulously organized his collection. Every photo of past victims was catalogued, every newspaper clipping highlighted. He circled the new victim, Emily, with red ink, muttering under his breath. They never learn. They never stay home. Meanwhile, Laura and her team traced Emily's last steps using security footage and eyewitness accounts. Footage from a nearby corner store showed Emily entering Maple Avenue just before 8 p.m. The camera captured a figure trailing her, tall, masked, moving with deliberate precision. But the image was grainy, details obscured. Enhance it, Laura commanded. Technicians worked quickly, trying to bring clarity to the figure. Each pixel sharpened revealed more. The suspect wore dark clothing, gloves, and a Halloween mask resembling a cracked porcelain face. Even in the low-resolution image, the intent was clear, predatory, patient, and unrelenting. At the station, Detective Mark Reynolds joined Laura. A seasoned investigator with a penchant for pattern recognition, he had reviewed old cases. Every Halloween murder in Millhaven, he said, involves a victim targeted for their isolation, their routine. Our killer studies them for weeks, sometimes months. Laura nodded. Then we need to track potential targets. No more public events without monitoring. And notify parents. Warn them. By evening, Millhaven's residents were on edge. Streetlights flickered, children were kept indoors, and the festive excitement of Halloween had transformed into a tense vigil. Yet, the killer moved with confidence, knowing fear itself would aid the hunt. 2 days later, a break came, but it was both promising and terrifying. A tipster called the station, a resident claiming to have seen a suspicious van parked near the outskirts of town on Halloween night. Laura and Reynolds arrived to find a gray Ford Econoline with tinted windows. Inside, nothing of immediate evidential value appeared, but beneath the driver's seat, a small, blood-stained notebook was discovered. The notebook contained chilling entries, dates, initials, and cryptic references to the games, alongside sketches of Millhaven streets, marked with circles around homes, alleys, and public events. One page listed a new date, October 31, 2025, followed by a name, Hannah Whitaker. Laura's stomach sank. The pattern was clear. The killer was planning again, and another teenager was marked. The urgency intensified. The town's safety hinged on finding him before Halloween night's end. Laura and Reynolds coordinated a neighborhood watch, deploying officers discreetly near key points around town. They interviewed residents, parents, and teens, piecing together alibis, routes, and habits. But the killer was clever, watching from the shadows, predicting their every move. Late that night, Laura returned to the abandoned Millhaven Theater. Something about the place called to her, as though the building itself held memories of past horrors. The theater was silent, the air thick with mildew and dust. She shined her flashlight over the stage, across the empty seats, and toward the basement door, the site of the shocking discovery the night before. As she approached, a faint noise echoed from below, a soft shuffle, deliberate, almost taunting. Laura's pulse quickened. Whoever, or whatever, was down there knew she was coming. Slowly, she descended the stairs, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Inside, the basement walls were lined with photos of victims past and present. Every newspaper clipping, Every photograph was meticulously pinned in a grotesque timeline. But something new caught her eye, a recently discarded mask, identical to the one captured in the corner store footage. It wasn't a mere prop, it was a calling card. Suddenly, a sound from the corner of the room, a soft thump, almost inaudible. Laura spun around, gun drawn, heart hammering. Shadows moved. A figure darted past her vision, too quick to identify. The chase was on. She pursued the intruder through a maze of furniture and debris, the basement's low ceilings amplifying every echo. Then a door creaked open at the far end. Laura rushed toward it, only to find it locked. Frustration surged. Whoever had done this had left intentionally, leaving behind a taunting puzzle. Exiting the theater, she received an urgent call from Reynolds. "Detective, you need to see this," he said. "It's Hannah Whitaker, she's missing." Laura felt a wave of dread. The timeline matched the killer's plan exactly. Another life in peril. And now the case wasn't just about solving past murders, it was about stopping a current one in real time. Hours later, Laura returned to the crime lab. The gray van's notebook had been analyzed further. Fingerprints, partial, smudged, but enough to indicate someone with previous offenses. DNA swabs revealed traces consistent with a suspect from the 2005 Halloween murders, an individual long thought to be uninvolved, overlooked, or perhaps even wrongly cleared. The realization hit Laura hard. The past and present weren't separate, they were intertwined. The same mind that had terrorized Millhaven a decade ago was now active again, methodical and deadly. Before dawn, she stood overlooking the town from a small hill. Fog rolled through the streets, obscuring the quiet homes below. Somewhere in that town, Hannah Whitaker was walking a path mapped out by a killer who knew Millhaven better than anyone. Then a call came from dispatch. Another van had been spotted, circling the parade route, lights off. Laura grabbed her coat, radio in hand. The hunt had escalated. Inside the van, the driver's hands were steady, gripping the wheel with precision. Every detail, every previous failure, every escape had been memorized. The van's tinted windows concealed a figure who smiled beneath the porcelain mask, confident that tonight Halloween would claim yet another victim. Laura's voice cut through the radio. "All units, perimeter lockdown. We find him tonight. No mistakes." And just as the sun broke over Millhaven, the killer's shadow stretched across the streets, waiting, watching, and ready to strike again. In the quiet that followed, a single phone notification lit up Laura's screen. A photo of Hannah Whitaker, alive but bound, her eyes wide with terror. The message beneath read, "You're too late." The chase had become a race against time, and the killer was always one step ahead. The town of Millhaven hadn't slept in days. Every window glowed with anxious light, every door was bolted. The Halloween decorations that once brought laughter now hung like grim reminders of everything lost. Detective Laura Martinez sat in her office surrounded by evidence. Files, photographs, the blood-stained notebook, and the haunting image of Hannah Whitaker. The message, "You're too late," echoed in her mind. She knew this wasn't just about one killer. It was about a legacy of horror buried deep in Millhaven's history. Across the room, Detective Mark Reynolds reviewed the latest forensic report. The partial fingerprints from the notebook had been matched to Gregory Holt, a man once arrested for abduction in 2005 but released due to lack of evidence. Holt had vanished shortly after, his records fading into obscurity, until now. Laura leaned back, eyes narrowing. "He's been here all along," she murmured. "He never left Millhaven." The team traced Holt's last known address to an abandoned farmhouse 5 miles east of town, near the old highway. It was a place locals avoided, its windows boarded, its yard overgrown. Yet, recent reports suggested strange activity. Lights at night, faint music, movement in the shadows. That evening, a tactical team surrounded the property. Laura and Reynolds led the entry. The air was thick with anticipation, flashlights sweeping through the darkness as they advanced. Inside, the stench of mildew and decay mingled with the faint hum of an old radio. Photographs of young victims were taped along the walls. In the center of the room stood a small table with a porcelain mask resting upon it, its surface cracked, painted with faint streaks of red. A chilling voice recording played on a loop from an old tape machine. "They wear masks every year. I just showed them their real faces." Laura's radio crackled. "No sign of the suspect on the first floor," an officer reported. But in the distance, faint scratching sounds came from below. The basement door creaked open slowly, revealing stairs descending into complete darkness. Laura signaled the team and led the way down. The basement was a labyrinth, narrow halls branching into small chambers lined with old Halloween props, boxes, and flickering blue bulbs. In one corner they found a small camera setup aimed at a chair. On the floor lay duct tape, rope, and traces of blood. Reynolds picked up a folded sheet of paper from the chair. Scrawled in shaky handwriting were the words, "One more to finish the story." Suddenly, a metallic thud echoed through the basement. The team rushed toward the sound. A hidden door behind a false wall led to a tunnel, old, damp, and stretching beneath the property. At the end of the tunnel, faint light filtered through a grate leading to the woods beyond. They followed the path to an old shack, half collapsed under the weight of years. There they found Hannah Whitaker's bracelet tangled in a bush. Laura's breath hitched. She's close. The shack's door was ajar. Inside, Hannah was tied to a chair, gagged but alive. Laura rushed forward to untie her, then froze. From the corner of the room, a voice emerged, calm, deliberate, almost conversational. "You shouldn't have come alone, Detective." Gregory Holt stepped into the dim light, face half covered by his cracked porcelain mask. His eyes were hollow yet alive with twisted satisfaction. Laura drew her weapon. "It's over, Holt. Step away from her." Holt chuckled softly. "Over? You think this is about her? You think this is about them?" He gestured toward the wall, where faded photographs of every Halloween victim hung in a precise grid. They all wanted to be someone else. The costumes, the masks, it's all lies. I just showed them who they really were. "Drop the weapon now," Reynolds shouted, entering behind her. But Holt's grin widened. "You're too late." Again. A timer beeped from beneath the table. Laura's eyes darted down, a crude device, wires blinking. She lunged forward, grabbing Hannah and pulling her clear as the device exploded in a burst of smoke and debris. Chaos erupted. Dust filled the air, the shack collapsing in on itself. When the smoke cleared, Holt was gone. Outside, officers searched frantically through the woods. Laura held Hannah close, assuring her safety, but inside she knew it wasn't over. Holt had escaped, again. Hours later, back at the station, Laura watched security footage from a nearby gas station. The timestamp matched the explosion. A man in a hooded jacket filled his car's tank, then looked directly at the camera before driving off. The porcelain mask sat on the passenger seat beside him. "Play that again," Laura ordered. The frame paused. The faint reflection in the window revealed something chilling. Another face beside Holt's in the passenger seat. Someone else had been there all along. Reynolds leaned forward. "You're telling me there's more than one?" Laura's expression hardened. "No. I'm telling you this was never about one man. It's a ritual." The realization sent a wave of dread through the room. For years the police had hunted a single killer, but what if the murders were part of something larger, a chain of copycats carrying on a legacy each Halloween? As dawn broke, Laura received a message on her phone. No number, no trace. It contained a single photo, a group of people in masks standing in the woods, each holding a candle. In the center, a new victim knelt with their head bowed. The caption read, "Millhaven is just the beginning." Laura looked up from the screen, her heart pounding. The case she thought she was solving had just become something far bigger, an underground cult built on fear, ritual, and death. And somewhere, far from Millhaven, a porcelain mask was being placed on another face. The voice from the radio returned one final time. "If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what's coming next. Hit subscribe because the truth doesn't hide forever." The days following the explosion left Millhaven trembling. Streets that once buzzed with laughter were now silent. News crews camped outside the police station, and the town's name became synonymous with horror. Every parent clutched their children tighter, every passerby looked twice over their shoulder. Detective Laura Martinez hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours. Her office lights dimmed to a pale blue, files stacked high beside her. Across from her sat Hannah Whitaker, alive, traumatized, and trembling as she recounted her captivity. "He wasn't alone," Hannah whispered. "There were others, they watched." Laura's hand tightened on her pen. "How many?" "I don't know. For maybe 5. They wore masks, porcelain ones. And they said something about keeping the story alive." The phrase echoed in Laura's head. Keeping the story alive. It wasn't about one killer, it was an entire network, a ritual passed down for decades. She opened the dusty files from 1978, the earliest record of unsolved Halloween disappearances in Millhaven. Each victim had been taken on the same date in the same manner. Each case was closed without resolution. The deeper Laura dug, the more disturbing the connections became. The victims' families shared something in common. They had once lived on properties tied to the old Millhaven Harvest Festival, a celebration that ended abruptly after a tragedy in 1975, a stage fire that killed several townspeople. The festival's founder, Elias Holt, was Gregory Holt's father. It wasn't random. It was revenge. By midnight, Laura and Detective Reynolds drove to the outskirts of Millhaven, where the remnants of the old festival grounds lay hidden beneath weeds and fog. Wooden signs still read, "Welcome to Millhaven's Harvest of Shadows." The area was deserted, but faint flickers of light moved among the trees. They parked their car, flashlights cutting through the fog as they advanced toward the sound of low chanting. There, in a clearing, stood a circle of masked figures holding candles. Blue mist swirled through the trees. In the center was a wooden effigy of a man wearing a porcelain mask, its hollow eyes staring into the void. Laura whispered to Reynolds, "We have to move now." But before they could approach, one of the masked figures spoke aloud, voice calm and deliberate. "You can't kill what was never meant to die. This is the legend. We are its storytellers." The group turned toward them in unison. Laura drew her weapon. "Police, drop everything and put your hands where I can see them." Instead of scattering, the masked members knelt slowly, placing their candles before them. From the shadows behind them, Gregory Holt emerged, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. "Detective," he said softly, "you've done well. You found the story. You made sure everyone would hear it." Laura's grip tightened. "This ends tonight." Holt smiled faintly. "Oh, it doesn't end. It begins again, every year. We don't kill for pleasure. We kill for remembrance. For those the town burned and buried." He took a slow step forward, removing his mask. Beneath it, his face was pale, marked by years of obsession. His eyes, glassy and wild, stared straight into Laura's. "You see it now, don't you? The masks hide the truth because the truth terrifies them." Reynolds moved to flank him, but Holt raised a hand, signaling the group. Instantly, several masked figures reached for something under their robes. Officers hidden nearby emerged, shouting commands. A flurry of motion followed. Flashlights, shouting, confusion. Gunfire cracked through the air, but it wasn't from Laura's team. Smoke filled the clearing as blue lights from police vehicles flashed through the fog. When it cleared, Holt was gone. The remaining masked members were detained, but none spoke. Not one name, not one confession, only silence. As dawn approached, Laura found herself standing beside the ruined effigy. Beneath it, she noticed a small metal box buried in the soil. Inside were newspaper clippings from every Halloween murder, each marked with Holt's handwriting, "Stories must be told." Later, at the station, forensics reported something chilling. Among the items recovered from Holt's hideout were dozens of digital files labeled with names, dates, and future Halloween events, spanning across multiple towns in the US and UK. "This isn't just Millhaven," Reynolds said grimly. "It's spreading." Before Laura could respond, an email alert pinged on her computer. No sender, no subject, just a video attachment. She clicked it. The footage showed a family in another small town, children preparing Halloween costumes, laughing. The camera slowly panned to reveal someone watching from across the street, wearing a cracked porcelain mask. The video cut to black, leaving only a message: "The story continues." Laura exhaled slowly, realization setting in. Millhaven was never the origin. It was only one chapter in a much larger, unseen horror that traveled from town to town, year to year. She stood by her office window as dawn's light seeped through, blue and pale. The masks were gone from her evidence board, but she knew they'd appear somewhere else soon. In her final report, she wrote, "The Millhaven murders are part of an ongoing pattern tied to ritualistic killings every Halloween across multiple states. The perpetrators refer to themselves as the storytellers. Their motive is ideological, preserving a myth through violence. Active investigation continues." As she set down her pen, the radio in her office crackled faintly. A distorted voice whispered, "See you next Halloween, detective." Laura stared at the radio, frozen. Then she looked straight into the camera that had been recording her statement for the department archive. Her words came slowly, each one deliberate. "If you think this story was dark, wait until you hear what came next. Subscribe, because Millhaven was only the beginning." The screen fades to black.